Happy Friday the 13th. It's February 13th. I'm Megan McKinney. It's Here First from IPR. A bill advanced by House lawmakers would restrict kids' access to materials considered harmful to minors. IPR's Isabella Liu reports parents would have to give their consent first.
Material depicting a wide range of sex acts or sexual contact would be restricted under the bill. Libraries and library workers could face criminal penalties or lawsuits for going around parental consent requirements. Sam Helmick is a librarian in Iowa City and the president of the American Library Association. Helmick opposes the bill and says Iowans already know how to navigate libraries for their families without government intervention.
We must realize that the threat to the freedom of a local library is the threat to the freedom of a local soul, a threat to the freedom of each neighbor to choose from all possibilities what is best for themselves and for their families.
The bill would also remove an exemption in Iowa code, saying the state's obscenity laws can't prohibit the use of any materials at a public library. I'm Isabella Liu, IPR News.
Iowa lawmakers have advanced a bill that would limit government agencies, businesses, and schools from requiring medical interventions like vaccines. Here's more about the bill from IPR's Natalie Krebs.
The bill, called the Iowa Medical Freedom Act, passed a House Health and Human Services subcommittee. It would prohibit businesses, government agencies, and schools from penalizing or discriminating against employees who refuse medical interventions like vaccinations. It would also eliminate school vaccine requirements. Lena Tucker-Reinders, the executive director of the Iowa Public Health Association, opposes the bill. She says vaccine requirements help curb disease outbreaks, which can also have economic impacts on the state.
We know that when outbreaks happen, that parents have to stay home, children have to stay home. It can mean lost hours, lost wages. A business may need to close.
The subcommittee's two Republican representatives supported the bill, saying people should always be able to choose if they want to get vaccinated. I'm Natalie Krebs, IPR News.
Governor Kim Reynolds has a bill. It would ban some food dyes from school meals. It's advanced through a House subcommittee. It would also require nutrition education for doctors, and it would let pharmacies sell ivermectin over the counter. The bill would require the state to continue applying for federal permission to limit food assistance to healthy foods. Iowa currently bans using SNAP for taxable food items like candy and soda. John Murphy is a lobbyist for the Iowa Beverage Association. He says the group opposes the bill because of its impact on SNAP and its restrictions on food dyes.
All of the ingredients and dyes on this list have been approved by the FDA. And so there's been rigorous scientific study done on all of these things. And so we don't think that it's appropriate to go through what the FDA has already done and say they got it wrong.
Reynolds' lobbyist says the bill would help improve the health of all Iowans. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order increasing low-tariff beef imports from Argentina by fourfold. U.S. cattle ranchers, some of Trump's biggest supporters, fought the move. Bill Bullard, CEO of the rancher advocacy group RCAF USA, says the bump in imports will only help the meatpacking industry.
Increased imports do effectively lower cattle prices, but they do not lower beef prices. Instead, what the increased imports do is provide greater margins for the meat packers and importers at the expense of producers on one end of the supply chain and consumers on the other.
At the same time, the Trump administration is pressuring ranchers to produce more cattle, but Bullard says the import bump will have the opposite effect. You're listening to Hear First from IPR. I'm Megan McKinney. Farmers have always had to contend with unexpected weather, but a growing number say it's becoming more extreme and harder to predict. The federal government created regional climate hubs more than a decade ago to help producers adapt to climate change, but now funding for those climate hubs is uncertain. More about the impact, that's in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to this Friday the 13th edition of Here First from IPR. I'm Megan McKinney. U.S. Department of Agriculture climate hubs across the country aim to better understand how climate change affects agriculture and forestry and help people adapt. But the future of these hubs is uncertain. As IPR's Rachel Kramer reports, that's as farmers across the country continue to experience more extreme and unpredictable weather.
It's 10 degrees at Heritage Hill Farm in central Iowa. Except for some garlic sprouts poking out of the ground, everything is brown and yellow this winter morning.
I'm so ready for the day where things are greening up and we're actually, we're able to start working in the soil again.
That's Jessica Krupika. She runs this diversified vegetable farm with her husband, their 2 boys, and some hired help. Even as they look forward to spring, Krupika says that season brings new challenges with heavier downpours and big temperature swings.
So that really impacts certain crops, especially like the lettuce, where the temperatures, if they get just too warm, they just get bitter. So you have a unmarketable crop.
Krupika says they're scaling back certain crops, shifting planting dates, and adding more greenhouses to stay profitable.
With the climate change, we need to be more nimble.
Over 3/4 of Iowa farmers surveyed by Iowa State University say climate change is happening. And the USDA created regional climate hubs over a decade ago, in large part to help producers adapt. Julian Reyes was the national coordinator for the 11 hubs for several years.
There was a lot of great climate data, for example, that existed at NOAA and at NASA, but there needed to be an in-between, right, to translate what that meant for farmers, ranchers, and foresters. And that's where I think the climate hubs excelled the best.
Last year, the Trump administration proposed cutting funding for the hubs in its 2026 budget request. Congress slashed the funding, according to committee notes in November, but just how much the hubs will lose is unclear. A USDA spokesperson said budget allocations are still being formulated. Reyes says the hub's annual funding was roughly $30 million before he left in 2024.
They definitely punched above their weight. For the amount of funding that they received, they delivered benefits to not only the USDA, but farmers, ranchers, and foresters. I was going to say threefold. I would say even fourfold.
Illinois state climatologist Trent Ford says the Climate Hub in Ames, Iowa, makes it easier to share information and resources with researchers and crop advisors across 8 states.
We know that weather and climate and the impacts that they cause don't stop at state borders.
He says the hubs have also played an important role in supporting local research. For example, he says he struggled to get funding from national scientific groups to study how warming winters impact apple production in his state.
They'll come back and say, well, Illinois is not really a major apple producer compared to like Washington or Michigan, right? But what am I supposed to say then to the apple producers in Illinois who are trying to make a living growing apples?
Ford says the Midwest Climate Hub helped him find funding to start the research, which led to a larger report about climate change impacts on fruit trees and vineyards in the region. Lori Nowatzki is the former associate director of the Midwest Climate Hub. She says the expected funding cuts come on top of massive federal layoffs last year.
I think the more prominent impact to the climate hubs has been the effect on the ability to keep staff and hire new staff.
Nowatzki was one of tens of thousands of federal employees who were fired last February. She was rehired with temporary job security and ultimately took a deferred resignation offer. Nowatzki found a research job outside the USDA, but she worries about early career scientists and widespread federal cuts to other weather and climate research programs.
To me, the greatest concern there is that we are going to have less robust weather-related services for farmers moving forward. I think that's almost a given, considering the changes that have happened this year.
Nowatzki says farmers will continue to experience more extreme and unpredictable weather, but they may have fewer resources to plan for the future. I'm Rachel Kramer, IPR News.
And I'm Megan McKinney. Happy Valentine's Day Eve. Got a poem for you. Roses are red, violets are blue. You're listening to Here First from IPR, and we adore you. Have a fabulous weekend. Talk Monday.